What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Hobby Hotline on a wonderful Saturday, Labor Day Saturday weekend. Also, the opening weekend, well, technically, I guess, second weekend, but the real opening weekend, week one for college football. My Gators got destroyed on Thursday, so that was a little bit disappointing. I have two of my wonderful co-hosts here. We have Chris and Horatio. I'll start with you, Chris. How we doing? What you got planned for this weekend?
Doing great. I went to Toronto in midweek to see my soccer team get their ass handed to them by a last place team. But other than that, I'm doing all right.
That's right. I think I saw one of your tweets. It was like, I have to stop going on 7-hour road trips to watch the Union. I thought that was a funny tweet. Horatio, how about you?
I'm going to Columbus at the end of this month.
So we're not canceling the trips here. We're still going. Love that. Horatio, how you doing this weekend?
Doing good. Good to be back. Adam got back from vacation, which was not much of a vacation, I guess, when you got 3 kids. So good to get back in the swing of things here a little bit. I'm a teacher, so I start the school year this week on Tuesday. So kind of preparing for that.
Big week upcoming for you. Yeah. Want to thank everybody over at Bench Clear Media for having us here on their YouTube channel today on this wonderful Saturday. Like I said, Labor Day weekend. Yeah. Very exciting. Actually, a lot of stuff did happen this week. Maybe it's surprising to some. Even before this, I was like, we were talking about topics and all these kinds of things, and I was like, we kind of have a lot of stuff here. Hopefully, we don't miss anything. The one thing that we are going to start out with that we'll cover a little bit. I mean, to be honest, the story is still developing. So we're still getting a lot of the facts. There's still, some interesting things going on here. We're going to pull up. There was an interesting story that started developing this week. There was a Jordan jersey, apparently. And Horatio, I'll kick it off to you just because when we were talking about it, it seemed like you knew you had followed this pretty closely. Apparently, there was a Jordan jersey, and there was some rumors that it was fake and that it was being sold. And some, one of the card porn, one of the, I guess, influencer accounts that is run on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. Apparently, they were kind of getting involved in some of these things. Like I said, Horatio, I'll kick it to you just first because when you were explaining, it seemed like you kind of had some good info.
Yeah, it like you said, it's still developing. So I'm just getting kind of the information from social media, and it's really fascinating. It's like a drama developing before your eyes. But so apparently the jersey is legit. It was sold by Gray Flannel Auctions, by the consignor there, or to the buyer. The consignor was legit, but then once the guys wanted to get the jersey photo matched. Gray Flannel offered to do it for them, and they did it once. They actually attempted to photo match, and they couldn't do it. And then Gray Flannel offered to kind of do some more digging, but it was going to cost more money, and so then they declined. So the attempt was made already to photo match this jersey through Gray Flannel Auctions. And so then what happened is that this buyer of the jersey then, allegedly created this fake foundation. Named after a former photographer who had passed away of cancer, about 16 years ago, Tony Ranza. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. The Tony Ranza Foundation. The family just found out about this. He passed away 17 years ago. The foundation wasn't created until a couple months ago or something like that. Maybe about a year ago at the most, but a couple months ago. So they were shocked to hear that there was a foundation created in their late father's name. The son was, anyway. That's what I'm talking about. And so all this is coming, out. And somehow, though, the jersey gets in the hands of Maigret, which is like the Babe Ruth of photo matching, right? So you go from Gray Flannel Auctions to Maigret, and then these guys are as legit as they come. And it seems like they got duped by the winner of this jersey. Now, the twist here is that the buyer of this jersey, the owner of this jersey now is the guy who has the handle Card Porn on social media. And Card Porn is a rock star, so to speak, in the hobby, right? He's kind of labels himself the watchdog for the industry. And so, how ironic is that the watchdog is the fraudster, and that they somehow got one of the more reputable companies in the space to kind of fall for their plan. Now, this is all developing. I'm following Darren Ravel with some stuff and some other Twitter handles. So stuff is still going on. No one is really saying. Maigret has released statements saying that we had the slide, we had the original slides, we had original photographs, but this points into a number of different directions, not just a fraud, but like the whole process, right? The whole way that this stuff is done.
Right. Yeah. And Chris, I'll kick it over to you for your thoughts on this topic.
So my thoughts about this was, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, there have been a number of these self-described experts and gurus and watchdogs that most of us have never heard before, but have just popped up and have become hobby famous. And it kind of makes me wonder, is this card porn guy the only one of these guys that's kind of not on the level here?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll kick you back again, Chris, in 2 seconds. I think that stuff like that is important. Like accounts that kind of like, I know there's an account that like tracks like altered RPAs. That's important. There is important accounts that do sort of this kind of watchdog, I think is how they describe self-proclaimed watchdog. I think there are accounts that do that are important. I didn't necessarily agree. I mean, there's been times in the past where they like, I don't know, they've had some interesting weird posts about like talking about like sponsors with card shows and like tagging the sponsors and tagging the actual shows. And I was like, I don't know. It seems a little weird, but I don't know. With it still developing, it seems it's a little bit scary just because it's like Horatio was saying, Maigret is one of the best, if not the best, photo matching, and it seems like if there's fraud going on here, that I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens with like if there's any law that is broken or anything, like any type of law enforcement that have to get involved here. And Chris, like I said, I'll kick it back to you. What else are you thinking about with this as this story is developing?
How did Maigret photo match this anyway? That's what I want to know. How did they take this? First of all, do we even know if this is an actual game used jersey or not?
I think I think it's like I said. I think I think these are some of the things I think that will come out later on. I mean, this story. I feel like this story is too big for it really to just kind of get swept under the rug. Like there's been kind of big stories that I feel like sometimes it'll be big on Twitter and Instagram for a day, and then next thing you know, it's on to the next story. I mean, but I think this one, this fact that it's a Jordan jersey, the fact that we really have seen memorabilia kind of become a lot more popular. It obviously always has been popular, but I feel like with the growth of cards, more people that are also into cards are getting into more memorabilia as well. So it's really, I don't know. It's a wild situation. Like I said, it's really something that's still we're still getting a lot of the facts of. I think we'll all, with this still being a developing story, I kind of want to get initial thoughts and then move on. Just because unfortunately we don't, like Horatio kind of broke it down pretty well, but I think, like I said, there's still a lot of developing stuff. So Horatio, I'll just kick it to you one last time, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I think my question goes back to what Chris said is, how does Maigret do that? I know that they're huge in the hockey space, and I know that they have a bunch of contacts in the NBA as well. But a lot of this stuff, it's sort of like grading, right? Like a lot of times with grading, how did my card get an 8? How did it get a 9? It's sort of this, Wizard of Oz thing where the guy's behind the veil and you don't really know the process. And that's kind of where AI kicks in and all these other companies are trying, Tag is coming in to kind of give you exactly why your card got the grade it got. Photo matching, I feel like, is in that, not with the Wizard of Oz behind the veil. We're talking like, you're just starting the journey in the yellow brick road. You're on the yellow brick road, right? Like that's how far away we are from really understanding their process. And I'm not one to dismiss, Maigret or the work that they do. I just don't think that there's a lot of people that really know how stuff is photo matched. And I think a lot of it is proprietary, right? Like I think that they're doing that so that, they kind of have that advantage and they're keeping that relationship. But I think they're at a point where, they're at a point where they've got the first mover advantage. And so I'd really like to kind of see how they go about photo matching this stuff, because it could probably be really interesting and really educational, informational, and specifically to this jersey. I mean, you're telling me that they were able to photo match it based off of 2 photos provided by Card Porn, and that was all it took to photo match his jersey? Because if so, or two original slides from the photographer. If so, then that's kind of weak, you know. And it is a bit of a black eye for the industry. But you know, maybe we haven't heard the last of it, right? We haven't heard really Maygray's side completely. So
right, exactly. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this story ends up being like one of the main stories that ends up being in that Adam Sandler movie that was rumored about, like the memorabilia industry. Apparently, they were him and then the producers from Uncut Gems were making some sort of memorabilia movie that was kind of supposed to be similar to Uncut Gems. It almost seems like this was like a written story about, like, I just all the different elements, you know, hobby influencer, biggest name in all of sports, biggest name in authenticating, like rookie jersey or whatever. It just seems like it's almost too good to be not too good to be true, but you know, too good to be just all a coincidence. But so Million Cubs Project, who is, I think, getting very close at the National. I believe I saw him. I think he was over 950,000, I believe, was the number. So he's getting very close to that the actual Million Cubs cards here. But he said it was Photoshop. Tony Ranz, I don't know if I pronounced that right, was a photographer. The foundation was created to trick Maigret. So I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate because, you know, it's not, you don't want any of these companies to get tricked like this, because it hurts. All it does is hurt the industry. Like stuff like this, sure, it's it's a juicy story on social media, but in reality, all it kind of does is delegitimize a lot of the work that a lot of these companies are putting in to make the memorabilia and make sports cards a more an industry that holds more of a standard of you know, being more legitimate. So yeah, it's an unfortunate story. Here's with our next topic here, we're going to move on to the new Leaf CEO has been announced. New Leaf CEO is a former Topps director of hobby sales, Kevin O'Neill. Brian Gray also, you know, on Twitter, I think he, you know, tweeted this morning, he's trying to get to 10K. So if you want to go follow Brian Gray on Twitter, get him to 10K. That you know, do that with what you will. Chris, first I'll kick it off to you. I don't necessarily know that much about Kevin O'Neill, but I have some thoughts that I can get into after you know, you guys kind of share your thoughts. So Chris, I'll start with you.
So apparently about a couple of months ago, O'Neill left Topps to join Beckett to take over from Kevin Isaacson's old position as head of Southern Hobby Distribution. But after only maybe a month on the job, he leaves and becomes the CEO of Leaf. That's kind of strange. Spend only a month in a new job before moving on to another job. But again, this guy's been around the hobby for decades. 10 years at Topps. Before that, I think he was at Press Pass. And I think he got his start with a company called Rooks, Roox, which made high school cards and draft pick type cards. I think their most famous set was for they actually got the license for the 99 women's soccer team that won the World Cup.
Oh, cool. It's cool.
Yeah. And they kind of went away after that, and he wound up at Press Pass. So you have an experienced guy at the helm. So I think there were also a couple of other executives that were promoted as well. So yeah, I think Leaf is in pretty good hands. So
that's good. Yeah. And so, I mean, Horatio, what are your thoughts? Do you know Kevin O'Neill at all? Like, have you done any background on him? Like, what are kind of some of your thoughts on this change? So I think I don't know. Maybe it was a surprise. Maybe it wasn't Brian Gray stepping down, but yeah, just let me know what you think about the new CEO stepping in.
Yeah, no, I don't know Kevin O'Neill. Wasn't very familiar with the name. Been reading, like Chris said, he has a lot of experience, so that's somebody that that they felt safe with. I find it interesting, filling in for Brian Gray. Those are kind of some big shoes to fill.
Definitely.
Regardless of how you feel about the guy, right? So yeah, with Brian Gray, I felt like you had the showman. You kind of had the guy that was I don't mean to say it in a bad way, but like the center of attention, right? Every time he walked in, the smartest guy in the room, kind of deal.
Yeah, right.
With Kevin O'Neill, it seems like this is kind of like they went in the opposite direction. Kind of like a guy who's kind of been in a supporting role his entire career, and slowly climbed the ladder. Wasn't necessarily like an entrepreneur like Brian was, right? Where he just struck off on his own and decided to start Leaf. And so it's interesting. I like the products that Leaf has been putting out. I like the fact that they're focusing on entertainment. Different personalities on their cards. I know that there was some, it doesn't come to mind. I know there's some controversy about some forged autographs on some recent cards. There, as Brian was no longer with the company. That's kind of how it got revealed, right? Like an email was sent out. Brian's no longer in the company, and that kind of like
right.
started.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Started sending shockwaves through the industry. But no, looking forward to see how they continue to evolve in this kind of situation as Panini grows stronger, bigger and stronger. It appears. How does Leaf kind of become the leader almost in like unlicensed product? What role do they take, and what's their strategy? I think that's very fascinating. Because there does need to be competition for Panini, whether it's part of the Topps brand or whatever, and whatever Panini acquires, there needs to be some legit competition. So,
right, yeah, and I mean, I think as much as I think Leaf does get a little bit of slack on like social media and people saying that they don't like the cards because they're unlicensed, they have done a pretty good job, in my opinion, of keeping and staying very, very relevant without having those licenses. And I think that is impressive. And like I said, like you said, Horatio too, they've been doing a good job, I think, with like the personalities and those types of cards. And that's actually, I think, one of the best things that they've done recently. And I mean, I think, I guess, kind of depending on how you look at it, I mean, it's trying to get people who weren't into sports cards that are into maybe some of these more online personalities. Like I know they did, this is going to sound nerdy, but Tifu, who's like he's like a gamer. He's like does stuff on Twitch. He got a card. There's like other internet personalities that they've done. And I mean, I'll kind of switch the topic a little bit here, but my thoughts on CEOs and like C-level suite executives at some of these companies. I'm kind of torn on if I want more people from outside the industry to kind of try and step in and become sort of these types of these types of executives. But I do also feel like it's tough because it's the industry. And I think, Chris, we actually talked about this a couple weeks ago when the new Beckett CEO was announced. I asked the question, does someone who is a CEO do they have to like sports cards? Do they have to be into sports cards? And I think it was you, Chris, who said they don't have to be necessarily into sports cards, but they do have to be a collector. And I think that's true. And, as somebody who has been around and kind of been at different jobs, I do think it's good for those types of people to kind of make their way up the ladder. But I do also wonder, like, at what point does the well kind of dry up? And I don't know. I'll ask you this question, Chris, maybe. Like, how do you think in 15 to 20 years, are the executives going to be people that are working at these card companies now, or are they going to have to figure out a way to bring people in to take some of these positions that are like high value positions at some of these companies?
Well, you're going to naturally have some level of churn. The question that concerns me is there someone in middle management now at these companies that's being groomed to move up the corporate ladder whether it's Leaf or any other hobby company? Is there a guy, say, in product development that's being groomed to be the next COO or CEO?
Mm.
So
Right. Yeah, that's that. I mean, that's kind of that's actually exactly sort of the point I was trying to make too. Like, where are the future CEOs? I guess is maybe the question. And Horatio, we'll wrap this topic up too, and we'll move on to the next one. But what are kind of some of your final thoughts on the Leaf CEO, or just kind of CEOs, I guess, in general, from or C-level people at these companies, just in general?
Yeah, and I want to clarify. I don't know if I said Panini or Fanatics. I meant the Fanatics, as Fanatics takes over stuff. But from before my comments before. But
Oh, okay, right.
I think that I think that the best CEOs come from within. I think or at the very least, like Chris said, that they're collectors, but the very best ones have it in their DNA, and they show that that talent. It doesn't mean that they're just collectors or just hobbyists or whatever, but the very best leaders have a very thorough knowledge of the hobby, have that mindset of the collector, and that translates into their management style, and that translates into the decisions that they make. You see it everywhere. I mean, even in my industry, right? Education. You bring people from the outside of education. They worked in God knows what, any other industry. They get appointed a principal, and things just fall apart because they don't really understand, the what it means to be, I guess, an educator. But that's my own little thing there. But same thing with any other industry, right? Like, you can't just bring outside people.
Right.
They don't understand completely, like, the ins and outs of it. And you can't just say, well, it's a business, and I've run a business before, so I know how to run this business. Well, every business is unique. And like Chris said, hopefully these companies have, this pipeline of, middle management guys that are, and women that are coming up and have a future as CEOs for these different divisions and different companies.
Totally.
Beckett
Yeah.
learned this the
I think
hard way of hiring someone from outside the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to give a big shout out to everybody in the chat as well. Thank you all for leaving your comments. Let us know where you're watching the show from today. I always like asking this question because we always get some wild responses. I think some people said Korea a couple times. Like, people have said all different places all around the world. Hobby Hotline, I think, is global. Even looking at some of the back end numbers, like, people are watching from all over the world, which is like a ton of that's phenomenal. I'm glad that we can all share sort of our expertise when it comes to sports cards and teaching and showing people kind of the ways and talking about these fun topics. So yeah, just let us know. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. If you're watching on anywhere else, just the repost, the retweet on Twitter. I forget what it's called on Facebook. I don't know if it's a repost or whatever they call it, but if you want to, or X, I guess, but I'm still going to call it Twitter because I'm a rebel like that. But yeah, let us know where you're watching the show from. We're going to move on. We've got sort of a little bit of a rapid fire segment here. So there was 3 hobby prospects this week that had kind of some big news stories happen. One of them, the first one we're actually going to talk about, is Jason Dominguez, the Martian. He made his major league debut, and he hit. Ooh, sorry, excuse me. Oh my God, sorry. He hit a home run in his first, I think it was his first career at bat, which is pretty wild. Prospecting, it's always good to kind of mention, prospecting can be dangerous. Prospect at your own risk. Maybe this is my disclaimer. If you're going to be buying prospect cards for Jason Dominguez, it might be a good time to sell your Jason Dominguez cards if you have it. Cause, like, best case scenario, he turns into Mookie Betts. Worst case scenario, he turns into, I don't know, one of the millions of other prospects that didn't pan out. So Chris, I'll start with you. Kind of, what are your initial thoughts on Dominguez and his call up, and maybe some tips if you got any cards, if you have any tips for us too.
Yeah. When was the last time the Yankees had a prospect this hyped that they actually kept and developed and didn't trade away? I mean,
I guess Volpe, I guess, but I mean, it's the same. It's the same kind of cat. Because it's just this year too for him. So yeah. I mean, that's the last one I can think of. But yeah, sorry, keep going.
I mean, the last one I can think of is like going back to like Derek Jeter and Ruben Rivera.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, the Yankees traditionally are a team that doesn't hold on to their prospects. They usually trade them away for veterans, usually at the deadline. And yeah, it's been a while since we've had a top prospect in wearing the pinstripes. So
Yeah, he did. I don't know if he's earned his pinstripes. I think that's like a joke online. Is like when does a player earn their pinstripes or whatever? But yeah, so Dominguez makes his major league debut. Pretty cool. Horatio, what are kind of some of your thoughts? What are some of your thoughts on the call up with Dominguez?
Just reading the comment. Can I shout out a comment here? Just
Sure.
That's a big worst case, he turns out like Wander. Yeah, that would be unfortunate. So interesting. Like I play fantasy baseball,
Aaron
so
Judge.
I try to keep up. Aaron Judge was a big one. I try to keep up to date with the prospects for future futures and holding some guys on. And Jason Dominguez is one of those guys that I learned first about from the hobby. Like I had no idea who Jason Dominguez was. He's like card famous, right? He was card famous to me.
Yes.
Same thing with Eli De La Cruz. Like I was like, who's Eli De La Cruz? When I saw his cards going for his first Bowman's going for thousands of dollars. And then I realized, oh, okay, let me follow this guy. And then you see like these guys are like legit guys. So it's kind of funny how Jason Dominguez to me was first introduced to me as a hobby guy and kind of a bit of a poster boy for like the bubble, right? In 2020, 2021, how his cards were going for astronomical numbers. And so it's actually good to see him have the debut that he did, First of all, the fact that he made it, he got called up to the majors, and then he has a solid debut. It bodes well. I think it bodes well. I don't know that it necessarily justifies the prices that his cards were going for. But great to see Jason Dominguez make it. You always want these guys to make it,
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it only can help the hobby really if a prospect can kind of at least be decent and be like pretty good, like especially when because I mean, just for another example, you look at sort of the prospects from that time period. Zion, for example, we still sort of maybe don't know what he's going to turn into, but I think Dominguez and Zion and Ja is a little bit different, I think, but like those prospects from that time period, I definitely do think were
LaMelo.
Yeah, they were important. They were important for the hobby, and they're important for the health of the hobby. I mean, I like I said, and I think we point out that comment about Wander Franco. I think it's probably obviously a little bit different of a situation, but I do think I saw it was either one of his orange Wander's one of his orange Bowman autos. It was either one of his orange or reds. I forget which color it was, but I saw a tweet and someone was talking about last year. In August, the card sold for $90,000, and the same card with the same certification number just sold for like $8,000. So it's like when something like that happens, it's not good for the hobby. That's just not. And I know that like I think that there are some people that may relish in the fact that they were telling people not to buy prospects, doing all these things, but like I don't know, it's not good for the hobby's health in general when you see something like that, because whether you don't know that $90,000. Now granted, someone who's buying $90,000 sports card, it's not like they're buying it with their last $90,000 they have in their bank account, but yeah. Like at the same time, someone like that who maybe potentially is in that category, who maybe would have potentially told other people that they were into sports cards, the fact that they had to sell that card for $8,000. I mean, even the fact that someone bought it for $8,000 is pretty shocking as well. So, yeah, it's that's an unfortunate tale of a prospect who didn't work out, obviously for different reasons, but like it's always good. Like Dominguez was part of that 2020 the first edition Bowman too, which that was the first time that they had developed they had came out with that first edition Bowman product, which I thought was interesting too. It kind of adds almost like another wrinkle into like which is the best card for a prospect, and you can buy a bunch of different cards that are basically the same but like not the same. So that's definitely interesting. Like I said, we're going to go on to the next hobby prospect here. I'm trying to make sure I got the tab up. We got Bronny James they came out with some of the images for his Topps Chrome McDonald's All-American cards, which are the 2023 version, which I talked about this, not to necessarily plug the podcast, but on Hobby Hotline, I talked about this earlier on in the week, and then they kind of came out with this. It was kind of interesting, actually. Back at the Topps Summit, they had announced that Bronny James had signed the NIL contract, and that was around the same time when that 2022 Topps All-American Topps Chrome was coming out, and then he wasn't on the checklist, and I think that probably caught some people by surprise. So I guess not thinking back, it makes sense that if they wouldn't announce that he's going to be in a product and then have him in the product the next like week or something like that. So it makes sense now in retrospect. But yeah, we have some official images here. So Chris, I'll start with you. Does this product get you? Does it get your juices going? Are you excited? Like, what are kind of your thoughts on this?
I'm not a basketball collector, so I mean, if I were a basketball card collector, I mean, I think the parallel here is the McDonald's All-American game is kind of what to basketball, what the Affleck perfect game, all-star game is to baseball. And Bowman has had at one time the contract to make those Affleck cards. Does anybody really care about those Affleck cards? I mean, they're not really in uniform. They're in the McDonald's All-American uniform. This is Bronny James's first card. I guess that'll mean something to someone. What I'm concerned though is, I'm old enough to remember Hank Gathers, dying on the floor during the middle of a basketball game because of a heart condition that I don't think he knew he had. And we know Bronny James has, I don't know if it's the same heart condition, but something wrong with his heart. Is Bronny James ever even going to be allowed to play in the NBA because of this?
I do think that there was recently there was a prospect who, I don't remember if it was a heart condition, but he was in a similar boat where he was going to be a top prospect. And I think he played at Oregon. I'm pretty sure he wore the glasses, but also the other thing that I'm thinking about with this is like, are there going to be other cards that come out before? Like, because they didn't really necessarily are there going to be other cards that come out for him hypothetically? Because the
card that you have on the screen looks like a regular Topps paper card. I hate using that term, paper.
Yeah,
they're going to come out with a chrome as well. I'm sure.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure they're probably going to come out with a Bowman product,
right?
A Bowman branded product that may also have a chrome version as well. So there could be 4 different Bronny James autographed cards out there. So
and then there might be Topps Now if they start doing Topps Now for college basketball and college football. There's that potential as well. Horatio, I'll kick it over to you. What are your thoughts on this card?
Yeah, it's sort of like I don't think it'll be counted as a true rookie. Like Chris said, I mean, there have been players that have come back from like heart conditions and players that have collapsed. I mean, that's kind of besides the point from the card, but I'm wondering, how long will it take him to get back on the court, right? I think I can think of Keontae Johnson from the University of Florida. He collapsed on the floor, and it took him a while, but he signed a contract with the Thunder, the Oklahoma City Thunder. So he's out there back playing. To me, like I said, like Chris said, I'm not much of a basketball collector. What I do understand is that Bronny he's not just sports famous though. Like he's famous, because of the documentary he had on Netflix with Top of the Class. Kids know him. Right. Quite a bit. He's LeBron's son as well, which is something. I mean, not all kids of celebrities are famous, and Bronny has already kind of lived up to that, right? He's almost also embraced it through social media and through other avenues. So there is a value to the card. I just don't think that if he does have a significant career, I don't see it being his signature card or being one of his top flight cards.
Right. And to just with how many cards there are nowadays, that it can be tough to kind of distinguish like what should be the most important card. And I always say let the market determine, because in actuality, it sort of is the market is the market. Like you can kind of push back on the market if you want to, but the market's going to determine what the best or most expensive card is, I guess. So, we'll see we'll see what happens with this type of card. And, you know, I think like KD, for example, had a McDonald's All-American card, I'm pretty sure. There have been other players who have had these types of cards. Now, granted, it's maybe going, like I said, this is the prospect rapid fire or whatever. I don't know the name of the segment, but the sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's a, you know, these types of prospects don't, well, I guess maybe Bronny James is a little bit different, but, you know, prospects don't always pan out. I mean, another one that comes to mind that was like a huge high school star was Michael Porter Jr. And it really took him like 5 or 6 years in the league to get over some of his injury issues. Like Michael Porter Jr. was the #1 recruit, and then he goes on to play at Missouri, but then he gets hurt, and then he's hurt throughout the first couple of years, and then he kind of starts developing. So yeah, I mean, there's a billion examples you can really think of. I'm actually just gonna pop up a couple of these comments too here. We got somebody said they're at the Burbank. They're on their way. They're on their way to Burbank. How much hobby boxes go for? I'm guessing it's maybe they're talking about this product. I don't know. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the hobby box would go for. And then somebody did ask the question: will Bronny be able to play at USC again? I mean, I think he's training. Like, I'm not sure if you guys have seen any of the news, but I'm pretty sure that he's training. Like maybe not with the team, but like back with whoever his trainers are. And we got it's nice to see the McDonald's logo on a Topps card. It's a clean look. I like the incorporation of the McDonald's colors against the white background. It could be a lot worse. Yeah, I mean the design of the card, it is pretty cool. I definitely agree. And then to wrap up this segment here, we have more prospect news. So Topps this week announced that there's going to be an event around the that card that they were kind of promoting as when they signed Victor Wembanyama to the contract. I thought it was weird that they didn't include it didn't include the card in the product. I guess it makes sense that they didn't, but it does. Maybe I'll get your guys' thoughts on this, but like, to me, it does seem a little bit weird that they would promote the card that he signed it, but then not include it in the product. And almost like, I'm not like, and like the Bowman U has been out for months now. So it's like, at what, you know, obviously, I don't know if this was the plan all along, or if something happened, like maybe they forgot to put the card in the product or something. I don't know. Horatio, I'll start with you. Like, kind of, have you dove into this? Like, what are your thoughts on the event and the card in general?
It's funny because I was at the Wildwood Card Show last week. We got to run in, and I saw some of those boxes, the Bowman U boxes, for sale. And I was wondering, whatever happened to that Wembanyama card? To me, you know, I think you're being generous, Adam. I think it's borderline fraudulent, you know, to promote the card and to, you know, say, hey, this is part of the Bowman U, you know, series, and then not included in any of the boxes. I mean, it's clear that their whole intention was to kind of hold it and kind of use it as another promo. But you know, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you state this card will not be in any of the releases, right? In any of the boxes. So yeah, I think that people legitimately bought the product, you know, thinking however far-fetched the odds were that they had a chance of getting that one card that says first card I ever signed. I think people legitimately bought the boxes and the product for that, to see if they could somehow get extremely lucky and purchase that. So to not include it in the product, it doesn't sit right, you know?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, how about you? What do you think about this?
When I first heard about this, if you're going to sign your first autograph, wouldn't you sign the 1/1 superfractor instead of the green card numbered to 99?
Yeah. I mean, I think
just me, but you know,
right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, I'm in the same boat as Horatio on this one. Sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So apparently all of the Wembanyama autographs are redemptions in this product.
Yep, that's correct.
And if you pull a redemption for the green card, you can be entered. You're automatically entered into this contest where you could have your green card redemption fulfilled with this particular card. That's the way I understand this promotion.
Right. And I think they're also having an event too, where and apparently when Biana is going to be at the event, they're holding an event in San Antonio. Yeah. But I'm like I said, I'm in the same boat as Horatio here. It just doesn't sit right with me that, they promoted this card so heavily in this Bowman U product. And then next thing you know, it's not even in the product, which actually, now that I'm thinking about it, like, and I guess this may be a question, because I've never pulled a redemption. So like, if someone pulls a redemption, does it say what number of the card it is? So like, or is there like, how would a redemption on this card work? Do either of you guys know, like if someone pulls a green, does it say on there it's 2 of 99 or 10 of 99 or whatever? Or like, do you send your redemption in and then they just pick which card you get? Like, do either of you guys know how that works exactly?
Topps doesn't serial number redemption cards. So if you get a redemption card, you send it in or you redeem it online, and you basically get the serial number that they give you. So.
Yeah. That's also sort of maybe a process that I don't necessarily like, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, they just get to this. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm over exaggerating here.
Does it really matter what the serial number is?
Unless if you get like one, or the jersey number, right? I mean, yeah.
Maybe you get number 92 because that's the team that he played for in France.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. So, Horatio, what are your kind of final thoughts on this topic? Do you have anything else to say? And then we'll kind of move on to got one other topic we're gonna cover, kind of running down at the end of the show here.
No, not much. Just that he signed 0-1 out of 99, and so somebody's gonna get that. I just that's the iconic card. That's his iconic card. That's gonna be one of the chases for a while, especially if he ends up becoming the next the next Tim Duncan or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
That's gonna be the card to chase. So like I said, I don't know. And I remember this when it came out. Someone said, who knows if it's going to be even available for purchase. And I just feel like holding the card for a promotion kind of doesn't. They knew Topps knew what they were doing. Even if it was sort of like a redemption, where it would have been so much cooler. I feel like, I don't know, if someone just got it out in the wild and received it and made a kind of one of those things where you read about or you see on social media where it's like they're super excited about pulling this iconic card, so to speak.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I think, Chris, I think you brought up the point, like, why wouldn't he sign the 1 of 1? I mean, I guess like, I wonder if it's kind of like a chicken or the egg type situation here. I think with this card, like, did he sign the card like this and then they decided that they were going to do this promotion, or did they know they were going to do the promotion and then they had him sign this card this specific way? I guess it's like I said, we don't necessarily know which way it was, like, and we don't know, and we probably will never know if this was was this the plan all along? It just seems the timing to me is what gives me the ick, I suppose, is a internet word that people use. Like, it's like the timing of it. Like, it's not like, why wouldn't they just announce it when the product first came out? Like, it just doesn't make much sense to me.
Maybe Victor Wembanyama just went into business for himself, picked the first card out of the pile that he was sent by Topps, and it just happened to be this green card.
Right.
And put the extra inscription on it. And Topps, maybe knowing that these autographs would not be available in time for pack out and have to go with the redemption route, decided to make chicken salad out of it.
Right. Yeah.
Make a contest out of this.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I guess the other thing is, like, with there being so many redemptions, like, we all know how much of this product there is. Like, how many redemptions have even really been pulled? Like, that's kind of the other that's the other thing. And I'm wondering, like I get maybe obviously not all 99 have been pulled. Like, is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 30? Like, I just wonder what this event is even going to really look like. And I think, like you said, they just send out these cards. So it's like, I guess the people who pulled the redemption because now this is, or maybe they saw some slowing down of sales. So they're like, okay, now we're going to announce it. So now that people know that, because people were excited for the product because it had Wembanyama in it either way. And they were going to be excited for it. So, maybe announcing it wouldn't have really, it gave them another opportunity to market the product with this card in it. So I think that's probably what it was. But like I said, I don't know. I just didn't, when I saw this, I kind of was like, it was the same thing with the Bronny James. It was actually two moments that have kind of happened recently where Topps sort of promoted something, but then it wasn't the full story. Like, and I guess maybe it's not up to Topps to necessarily come out and announce that Bronny James isn't in a product after they announce it. But like, if you have a product with Bronny potentially in it, and you announce that he signed an NIL contract in the same time period coming out, it may be, you maybe want to tell people so that way they don't go out and buy this product thinking they're going to pull a Bronny James card. Maybe similar with this, like, if this card can't, well, and I guess you wouldn't even really necessarily have pulled the card because they're all redemptions, unfortunately. But yeah, like I said, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think we have it. The NBA starts probably in October, or does anybody know when the start of the season is? We're coming up on the
Usually
training
October.
camps.
Usually end of October. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So, well, I guess we'll see. Well, I think it'll be cool. We'll see it's another event that Topps and Fanatics are going to be putting on. I mean, I think they usually put on pretty cool events. So we're going to actually move on to the last topic here. It is going to be Panini making a decision back in 2020 that has now cost them $25 million. There was apparently a copyright from AAA Wildcard back in '92 that Panini was just like, we're gonna, which I can't. I look at the cards. I'm like, how do you do this? Like, why would you do this? It's unfortunate, and it's an unfortunate story because like what happened was they basically just copied the design, and now they have to pay Wildcard $25 million. And Wildcard had a pretty big booth at the National. I would say that probably is going to be bigger next year because they got this extra $25 million from Panini. This is the last thing that Panini needs right now, which obviously this was from 2020, so it's not necessarily something they can control. It's unfortunate. Horatio, I'll start with you. What are kind of your initial thoughts on on this copyright infringement that we've seen?
I mean, before we got on, I was like, I was familiar with Wildcard. I got a couple of, old football cards. I got an nice Emmitt Smith Wildcard. But I asked Chris, I was like, does Wildcard still make any cards? And so, he told me they still do. And so for them to get Panini agreed to pay them $25 million, I'm like, I mean, that's a pretty significant windfall for Wildcard. Now, I guess now they're in the game, right? Now they can maybe do something with more products. So, as far as the designs go, like, look, man, I don't know. I mean, especially the backs of the cards, right? They're exactly the same, pretty much. You could argue, I guess, for the front a little bit, besides that top right logo. The Panini version is brighter. It's got a nicer picture. They also have a referee in the background, but Panini knew what they were doing because they're paying $25 million. So
right, yeah,
good for Wildcard.
Yeah, definitely. Chris, how about you? What do you think?
Over the last 10, 15, 20 years, card companies have gotten into this habit of recycling a lot of their old designs. Just about every Topps product the last 4 or 5 years has had some kind of reprint insert. This year in Topps baseball, there was the 88 Topps reprints. Last year was the 87 reprints. The year before that, it was 86. Heritage is a brand that's based on reprinting a 50-year-old card set. Archives is much the same way. This is the first time I think I've ever seen a card company reprinting someone else's design.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. The only thing that I can think of that vaguely is like this is that I remember Upper Deck made a card set that kind of vaguely looked like 71 Topps. It was a little bit different. They had the team name at the bottom instead of the top. but it was a dead ringer for 71 tops. I think it was 2002 vintage baseball. I guess that was one way they could have gotten around copyright, was making that change. But to see a company just blatantly rip off someone else, I've never seen this before, and I don't think we'll be seeing, well, unless Fanatics buys up everyone else, I don't think you'll see anything like this again. I mean, I'd like to know what Panini was thinking a couple of years ago when they did this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My initial thoughts are like, there had to have been some sort of agreement that they were trying to do and that didn't go through, and that it was too late to, like, that's the only thing I can really think of, because it's literally the design is exactly the same. Like, it has the Stat Smashers logo on the card, and I think that's also one of the big copyright issues, is they're using the logo. They're literally using the logo from the exact card. So like, they're using the logo, they're using the little squiggles in the design. Like even the squiggles have the same amount. They're the same amount. It's like, it doesn't make, the font is exactly the same. Like as someone who's a designer, like, there have been times where I've taken inspiration, like doing like t-shirts and stuff like that. But it's like, when the only thing that I can really think of with this is that they were trying to do some sort of deal or some sort of thing where they could use the IP, or they just thought that because I don't know, for some reason, maybe they thought the IP of it had expired, because like that happens with Disney, where it went, like this happened with Winnie the Pooh actually recently. This is not a sports card, but it's a little bit off on a little tangent here. Winnie the Pooh, their IP, legal IP expired. So like someone made like a horror movie with Winnie the Pooh in it. And like, this is something that maybe, I don't know, maybe Panini was like, oh, the IP, maybe it expired or something along those lines, or there was some sort of deal. Because to me, as a designer, to copy it like word for word, basically, especially on the back of these cards, like to make it look exactly the same just doesn't make any sense. Like, and also it's tough because it's like, if you're a designer and if you're a designer at Panini, I don't know how many designers they have, but they're coming out with new sets and new inserts like every single day. So it's like, you're churning and burning just through all these designs, trying to get them done as quickly as you can. So maybe it just slipped through the cracks too. Like maybe it was a designer who did it because he got an initiative from somebody to do it. And the next thing you know, it's just the card is out there and actually there's nothing they can really do about it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's unfortunate. Chris, I'll ask you again, like, do you think, like, how do you think something like this happens, in your opinion? I mean, well, like I said, it doesn't make sense to me.
I'm guessing that someone at Panini thought that this trademark might have been abandoned, which is a thing.
Right.
But, the wild card, the original card came out in 1992, and wild cards went out of business shortly there, the original wild card. So apparently someone must have kept that trademark alive. I don't know. I mean, I don't see how a company that wasn't around for over a quarter of a century could legally keep this trademark alive, but apparently somebody did.
Right.
So
yeah, and just it's similar to the Jordan story, where it's like, it just doesn't make sense how all of these things had to kind of line up for something like this to happen. Horatio, I'll kind of ask you the same question. Like, how do you think this happened? Like, it doesn't really make much. It's exactly the same. Like I said, it blows my mind that it's something like this could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had a greater understanding of, like a law background, like Chris said, like what is the limitations for a trademark? Like maybe they felt like, since that came out in 92 and they were defunct for, more than 10 years. I'm reading somewhere that says it's federal trademarks last 10 years. But that release was in 2020. So I guess we have to read through all that. But yeah, I mean, somebody must have thought that it was okay. That this is an old card. They're out of business. Maybe they didn't do their due diligence. Maybe they hired a bad lawyer who said, yeah, the trademark hasn't been renewed, because you could the original holder of the trademark could renew it for 10, for 10 years. They have the opportunity to do that. So maybe they thought that they didn't do their full due diligence and thought that the trademark was dead, and so that they could use it. That's the only thing I could think of. The other thing I was thinking is, like, I'm curious about why $25 million was awarded. I mean, that's a significant amount, like,
yeah.
How much did that product sell? And so, I mean, I find it hard to believe that Panini football product, alone, was $25 million. I mean, why ripping off that insert, would then that be such a significant amount to award to them? It's an interesting kind of settlement, I guess. And I'm wondering, but that is a settlement. Like, I wonder what they were actually initially suing for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do hope that one day there'll be some sort of like documentary that's put together with like all the hobby lawsuits, like some sort of like true crime documentary, like some sort of, I don't know. I think that we've seen so many different lawsuits, and it almost feels like an episode of Succession, like where it's like everybody's backstabbing, everyone's going behind people's backs, everybody's suing everybody. It's all going on all at once, and it's really I don't know when it stops or if it ever stops, because it's like, Fanatics obviously is coming in and they're trying to, I just know of Succession. I don't necessarily, don't know any of the characters, but it just seems like, they're, who posted actually a funny picture was John Newman from Sports Card Nation. He posted, another co-host here on the show. He posted, I think it was like a Godfather. It was like a meme of the Godfather with he was holding like the cat that had like a Fanatics logo, and then it was Michael Rubin's face. I thought that was a pretty funny one. That I think that sums up kind of what's going on here too, if I'm going to be honest, like with them making all these moves and all these things going on. Like I said, I think I'm hoping that there's some way to document all of these crazy things that are happening within this industry, because it feels like, maybe it's because we're in it, but it feels like every day there's some sort of like industry changing news that happens. And like I said, I'm wondering if it's like that in under other industries. I'm not really sure. But yeah, so we're coming up at the top of the hour, which is going to be the end of the show. I will, we'll go around the horn one more time. Any final thoughts here? Any words of wisdom that we have maybe at the end of the show? Chris, I'll start with you. What do you got for the fans? Let them know if you got to plug anything. Let them know that, and then just any words of wisdom as we wrap up the show.
Yeah, first of all, card companies, please stop ripping off other companies' designs. And please stop ripping off your own designs. Come up with something new every once in a while. Other than that, I really don't have much to plug. Plug Baseball Cardpedia. Follow me on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it now, at Stilgum. And that's all I got. Keep on rocking the free world.
Good. Make sure you get that one. Rocking the free world.
Get the gimmick in.
Horatio, how about you? What you got on the horizon? Anything you want to plug? And then some final words of wisdom maybe on the show.
Yeah, no, don't get anything. I got some things, some articles I'm working on. Coming out next month for Sports Collectors Daily. Took a light load on during the summer. I guess the words of wisdom would be, if you are an industry watchdog or a hobby watchdog, kind of truly understand what that means. If you're going to take on that role, and if you're going to listen to an industry watchdog or a hobby watchdog, always look at it from two different lenses. Right. It's just kind of unfortunate. I think one of the worst things is when people are taking advantage of people that they kind of trust or kind of believe in. That's the biggest kind of pain and kind of where these scandals are get even worse.
Right. 100. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think I always try and do this at the end of the show. It's like, we always are going to have new people coming into the hobby that are always going to have questions. So just know that, like, if you are being asked a question on Twitter, someone's probably a little bit scared to ask you that question. So like, you got to, respond with respect. I always try and make sure I always do that type of stuff and make sure that, new people coming in, they want to learn the same way that you were new coming in at one point too. So, the only things I got to plug, we've got, Hobby Hotline, actually, our Tuesday or only Tuesday episode of the month is coming up this upcoming Tuesday, the 5th. We got Danny Black, Oscar Torres, and Victor Ramon. They're going to be the hosts on that show. That'll be on the Hobby Hotline YouTube page. And then next Saturday, we'll be back here on Bench Clear Media to do the show as well. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you if you're watching on YouTube. Appreciate it. And we will see you guys all in the next one.